At 16 years old, Ronald Olivier murdered a 14-year-old boy and was sentenced to life without parole in the infamous Angola prison. For 27 summers, he worked the fields under the sweltering Louisiana sun. For 27 summers, he slept in a 6x9 cell on a mattress as thin as a cardboard, not knowing if he would be alive in the morning. Yet behind those walls, Ronald met Jesus Christ. In a supernatural turn of events, he was freed after 27 years and is now serving those who once imprisoned him. He shares his amazing journey from sure death to a life of redemption and restoration in his new book, 27 Summers.
It is an incredible story and a wonderful book, 27 Summers. Ronald joins us now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Your story is remarkable. So you're growing up in New Orleans, tough neighborhood, right? I mean, tell us a little bit about your childhood.
It was very difficult. I can remember two great things took place. My dad moved, which was a very great influence in my life. We had a real great relationship. He moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and I felt kind of abandoned and angry. And right after that, in the late 1980s, the crack epidemic came and completely destroyed my neighborhood. And so with drugs comes always violence follows. And so I grew up, man, basically hearing a lot of gunshots and sirens. I was accustomed to it. And before you know it, hey, I was looking for something to, to really hold on to, and it was the streets there, and the streets began to fall to me.
So you're 16 years old, there's an altercation in the streets, and you made a move with your gun that changed your life. What happened?
Yes, and changed a whole lot of other people's lives. And so get into this altercation, and one thing led to another, and it left two guys in a pool of blood, and one survived and one didn't.
And you shot them?
Yes. And so later on, I was arrested 2 days later as a juvenile, and thinking my mother's gonna come sign me out. That didn't happen. They transferred me to the adult court. So I went from facing juvenile life to facing the death penalty.
Now, at first, you thought maybe that you wouldn't be prosecuted to the extent you were, right? But then all of a sudden, you realized this is some serious business, and instead of the death penalty, though, you get life in prison. It must have been you must have been going through horror and fear and torment.
Yes. Everything was really, I was very optimistic about it up until the trial. I believe my life changed while the jury was deliberating. While I was in the cell, about 1 a.m., all alone, everything got real to me. The weight of it just came crashing down on me. And I was like, 12 people who really don't know anything about me are making the decision whether I live or die. And God brought to my memories something my mother told me years ago. I had a praying mother, and she told me, she said, if you're ever in trouble that I can't get you out of, you call on Jesus. And so in that cell, I got on my knees. I began to cry out. I was crying, very scared, didn't want to die. And I prayed this simple prayer to God. A lot of people say you don't make deals with God. I made a deal with him. And I said, Lord, if you don't let them kill me, I promise you, I'll serve you the rest of my life. And for the first time in my life, I experienced the peace of God. There was just this inward feeling of security that I was going to be okay. I couldn't explain it. I didn't know it was peace then, but and it just was this assurance inside of me.
That's quite a feeling, because you spent decades in Angola prison, right? Yes. One of the toughest in the country.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, how did the Lord begin to work in your life while you were in prison?
And so that moment in that cell, hey, I received 2 life sentences. The state gave me a life sentence with no benefits, and God gave me a life sentence with so many benefits. He encouraged us not to forget him.
Yeah, look at that smile on your face, even reflecting on it.
And man, but I still was doing some of the same things, still talking the same way, and I really didn't have anyone to disciple me. And so when I get to Angola, amazingly, God surrounded me around people that was willing to help me and not hurt me. And I found some of the most greatest men of God in prison who was pastors. You know, they pastored churches, and there was ministers. They had their own staff, and they began to disciple me and really show me how important it was to get in the Word, to renew my mind, how to develop a prayer life with God, and also how important it was to fellowship. And from that moment, my life began to change. It started to look like something happened to me in that cell. And from that, I found myself in the Bible college. So there's a Bible college in Angola that was established in 1995. It's the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. And I later graduated with a bachelor's degree in Christian ministry.
Now, your circumstances changed, too, because you got out of prison.
Yes.
And you met, forgive me, I can't remember, you met with the young boy that you shot and killed. He was 14,
yes.
correct, when he died?
Yes.
You met with his mother.
Yes.
Were you out of prison by that point or still in prison?
I was still in prison.
Okay, tell us about that encounter with the victim's mother.
In 2012, the United States Supreme Court come down with a ruling in Miller versus Alabama that said it was unconstitutional to give a juvenile a mandatory life sentence, which I had received. And that afforded me a right to challenge the sentence that I had that was now illegal. It violated my 8th Amendment of cruel and unusual punishment. And so I filed a motion to correct the illegal sentence, and I found myself going back and forth to court to this hearing to re-sentence me. And so when I go there, I notice there's this lady sitting right across the aisle from me that just staring at me. And she's like glaring, and I'm like, man, and I didn't want to look too intimidated and stare back because I got handcuffs and shackles on, so I'm kind of looking out of my peripheral and I can see her. And so my lawyers come over and like, man, we got a problem. One of the victim's family showed up, the sister. And when he said the sister, I said, no, that's the mother. I remembered her face. Wow. Out of anybody in the courtroom, her face just was branded in my mind. And so when I develop a prayer life, that's who I prayed for. I prayed for her more than I prayed for anybody. I could still see her tears on the stand as she testified concerning me, concerning her son. And so I said, man, won't you see if I can talk to her? You know, this was greater than me getting out. This was my greatest desire, was to have this conversation with her one day. And that's what I was praying about for years. And so I said, won't you see if we can have this dialogue? And he went over, came back, and she said she didn't want to talk to me, and that whatever she was going to say it on the stand. But they set the court date.
You're worried at that point.
Right, and so they set the court date back a month. I said, okay, good. I got a month to pray. And so I prayed for a month. I'm talking about consistently, and when I went back to court, she requested that she speak with me. And so we have this dialogue. They bring her behind me next to the DA. I'm handcuffed, shackled. I turn around and talk to her. I break the silence, and I said, ma'am, I take full responsibility of the life of your son. You know, there's absolutely no excuse for it. And by this time, we're very emotional. She's crying, I'm crying. And I said, I just pray you can find in your heart to forgive me. And she said, man, I don't hate you. She said, I'll forgive you. And man, what an awesome feeling. Even though I was handcuffed and shackles, I felt them come off me. It took me to a level of freedom that I had not experienced until that point. And she got on the stand and echoed what she said in private to me and put it on record.
That's beautiful.
And said she said on the stand that she believed I deserve a second chance.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And what an awesome experience.
Last question, tell me what you're doing now.
And so right now, I work for the Louisiana Parole Project. We help men who's been in prison over 20 years to to make a transition. We have wraparound services. We give them housing, clothing, and reentry program we have set up where we, just tell them we have classes on tech, social norms, and just help them integrate into society.
Awesome. What a redemptive story. We're so glad to hear what God's done in your life. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, sir.
God bless you. God bless you. Really encourage you to pick up 27 Summers. It is a great read with a wonderful, wonderful redemptive story. Pick it up wherever you can find 27 Summers.